Coming to you on All Hallows Eve. The horror. It's the little podcast of horrors with James, Christina, and Chris. Hello there, and welcome to our special Halloween episode. This is also episode 5, where we will be sharing personal stories of ourselves and our life experience with the paranormal. I am Chris.
I'm James.
I'm Christina.
And I want to say happy Halloween to everybody who is actually listening to this episode. So this episode, this is going to be a smaller version of what we've been doing. Each one of us is going to be sharing with you guys, the audience itself, a personal experience each one of us has had or not had. And I'm going to go first. So yeah, anybody
Get
have?
Well,
Get it
first,
cracking.
what are we drinking for this episode?
As always, I am finishing off a Bullet Rye. It's very smooth, very crisp, delicious. Bullet's the way to go.
Very good. Very crisp. Very good. Bullets. It's the way to go.
Down the back of the throat.
I'm drinking a potato chip porter from Martin House. It's a chocolate porter brewed with potato chips and salt, and it tastes better than it sounds.
I'm hungry now.
Me too.
You know, I be hitting that Boda box line, so
You just need a potato chip porter with me.
that sounds good.
It's got this nice taste of chocolate, just
Mm.
a little subtle aftertaste of potato chip on the end.
So like got a salty quality.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that sounds good.
Just very subtle, just enough to make you happy.
nom nom nom.
So I would say that part of the appeal of doing this show, at least for us, this podcast, this kind of comes from our own personal experiences with the paranormal or the unexplained. I mean, whatever you want to call it. I mean, personally, I've had experiences since I was a kid, growing up, you know. So on this Halloween special, I'm going to share with you a personal story that happened to me in my life.
As most personal stories do.
Yes. And so, start off. And this story revolves around a certain house, which, of course, the address is going to stay anonymous for personal and liable reasons. But the house in question that I'm going to relay the story about, it involves my former stepmother's house. She actually grew up in this home as a child. When she married my father, we eventually ended up moving back into this house. I believe I was 12. And my sister at that time, I believe she would have been 1 year
age
old.
lower than 12.
Correct. She was just a year old. I mean, just a little thing. Now, the stories that I'm going to tell you about, they're true. There's not going to be any of me trying to sensationalize this or whatever you want to call it. This is the story as best as I can recollect. This is to the best of my recollection. And you can take that any way that you want, because you don't know me personally.
I'm going to take it in a sexy way.
You would. So to begin with, nothing really happened as far as I recall, when I moved into
The
this
end.
house,
I was just thinking that at the end. Nothing happened. Okay.
Nothing
The
happened.
end.
the end.
That's it.
Christina,
Good
your
night,
story.
folks.
No, my life is boring. I mean, to be honest, I wish nothing ever had happened. So, the first instant of anything you might consider paranormal, um, or whatever, my father is a musician, and he, every weekend was gone on gigs. And so every weekend it consisted of me, my stepmother at the time, and my little sister. Um, and I had a really good relationship with my stepmother. She's a great lady, even to this day. Absolute respect for her. She's a nice lady. And my sister and I are very close. Extremely.
Extremely closed.
All that bullet.
This episode has been brought to you by Bullets Whiskey.
Extremely close.
It's very good,
It is.
crisp, and very good.
It's tasty. So the first instance of anything the common person might consider paranormal, it was the night that my stepmother and I were sitting in the living room, and she brought to my attention that there was this distinctive smell of cigarette smoke. And at first I think, as best as recollection can recall,
Recalls.
thank you. I didn't.
I was gonna say I just turned off my light for people that aren't
And
watching.
And it made you pop.
Look at you popping.
Look at you popping.
It's my oily skin.
It's good. And so one particular night we're sitting in the living room and she brings to my attention that she smells something. She says, "Do you smell that?" And I do. And I'm like, I do smell that. What is that? And she says,
I farted.
Her farts smell like cigarette smoke.
apparently.
Well, if it's the 1980s, everything smelled like cigarette smoke. And
This is-
nobody should ever be surprised
I mean,
smelling cigarette smoke in the 80s.
technically this is 1992.
That's just the 80s part two.
But, and I understand to some degree how walls can absorb cigarette smoke and then over time secrete it out. But the thing is, I could see the cigarette smoke in the living room,
As it
but I
secreted.
didn't see it in the kitchen. And it started appearing in the back den, in the back of the house. And so the smoke is in the living room and in the back den, and it never crosses the border into the dining room, which was in between. And it got to the point several nights. It was thick. You could see it visibly.
Y'all got a
Like-
1-year-old too in the house?
Yeah, Courtney was. Yeah, my sister was 1 or maybe 2 years old at the time. And this stuff got visible. Like, you could see it. And my stepmother at the time, excuse me, she asked me, "Can you see this?" And I remember thinking, yeah, I see it. It's very visible.
Could this haunting be any more 80s?
It can. And it does.
Ooh.
So, now, diverting away from the cigarette smoke for a moment, my father, at one point, he had stated to us that he had seen or observed, the best that he could recall, this creature. And when you got him to elaborate more, this creature was about 3 feet tall. It had legs like a human being, and it was just watching him as he was napping on the couch.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Oh, it gets even weirder from here. Just wait. So it was gray or white. I can't recall. And he wasn't even the first person who had claimed to see it. Even before him, my stepmother's aunt at the time had claimed to have seen it. In fact, she had seen it in the same way that he had. She had been asleep on the couch. So, as the story goes, my father's asleep on the couch, and as he's starting to wake up, he notices this thing standing in the doorway between the living room and the dining room, this creature. And it's just watching him.
And he didn't drop kick it. Why?
Well, the couch is, if I recall, like 10 feet away. It's on the opposite side of the room. And so, anyway, he comes up with this idea, this plan that he's going to, I guess, try to catch it. I don't know. So, he all at once just jumps up and runs at it, and it immediately turns and squeals and vanishes.
What did the face look like?
Well, the thing is, they never got a good look at it. When my dad is laying on the couch, he's squinting his eyes. And so, you know how when you're squinting your eyes, you can't see it clearly. He could just make out the shapes. And he could just make out that it was looking at him. The same thing with my former step aunt. Same thing. She was looking at it and observing it through squinted eyes. And when they jumped up to chase it, it turned and ran.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's just seemingly observing them. That's all it was doing. And so when my father jumped up and chased it, and it did that squeal, it turned with its shoulders hunched, ran into the kitchen, and vanished instantly. And I remember thinking, when my father relayed the story to me, I remember thinking, what were you going to do if you caught it?
For real?
Make a buttload of money?
I mean, were you gonna grab it? We didn't have a cage. Were you gonna put it in a cage? What? I was asking all these questions.
You just put a cup over it. You put a
No.
cup over it, and then you charge admission.
That's going to be a pretty big cup. Remember, this thing was like 3
You
feet.
put a
wasn't-
bowl over it, and you charge admission.
Well, if it's a brownie, then you don't want to do that because he helps around the house.
If you want to catch it, buddy,
That's true.
You're going to have to put your hands around it and grab it. I mean, are you prepared to grab this thing? Because I'm not.
Well,
Was it?
I mean, I'm gonna make a lot of money, so yeah, sacrifices can be made. Yeah.
Classic white man.
so anyway,
No way, but was it the creature that was smoking cigarettes?
we'll get to that.
Okay.
The short answer is no.
Do
So
we have a portal situation?
Hell if I know. So, jump to sometime later. My bedroom was at the end of the hallway. So if you were to look at the house and you were looking straight down, the kitchen is at the far end, and then there's the living room, and then there's the hallway, and along the hallway is my sister's bedroom, my parents' bedroom, and I'm at the very end of the hallway. So, to interject really quick to the listeners, and just so you understand, Christina and James have known me for over 2 decades now. They know that I'm not.
I don't know what he's talking about. I just met this guy.
you hush.
You've known me longer than Christina has.
This crazy hobo came up to me and was like, "Let's do a podcast." I was like, I don't have anything else better to do. Why not?
But he's got like 3 degrees and he's a millionaire.
Yes, and also a werewolf.
I wish I was a millionaire. That would be nice. Anyway, the point I was trying to make is that they've known me a very long time. They know that I don't just make things up. So I just wanted to put that out there. So anyway, as I was saying, my bedroom was at the end of the hallway. And up until this point, I had always kept my door open when I slept. I am now 43 years old, and because of what happens on this particular night, I now sleep with my door shut. So, on this particular night, I'm laying in bed trying to go to sleep. And suddenly, as I am laying there, I can hear in the kitchen something rattling the dishes. What? You tell me. This is followed by the distinctive sounds of little feet running across the linoleum floor in the kitchen. Moments later, I hear those same feet running around in the living room. And my sister is asleep. My sister is asleep.
My sister's asleep.
Oh, James. Let him have a good time with his bullet.
We're all having
She-
a good time with this
I'm
bullet.
definitely tipsy, so
I am having a good time
no
with this bullet.
shade, Chris. No shade.
I'm not offended. He knows he can. It's fine.
So my sister is asleep. I know this. So I know it can't be her. Because if it was her, she'd be in my parents' room. She would not be playing in the dark in the living room or in the dining room. That's not what she'd do. Now, following the footsteps, I start to hear what sounds like little hands beating on the couch in the living room.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was like playing in your house.
Well, and I'll get to that.
So a moment later now, I now hear it in the hallway. It's messing with my sister's doors. My sister had these unique kind of 1970s doors. They were two little doors that split in the middle, and they would open inwards towards her bedroom. And so I hear something rattling these doors. And it occurs to me that whatever this is, it's getting closer and closer to my bedroom. And eventually, I start to hear it in my bedroom.
Whoa.
It
I
was
kind of like this
playing
little guy.
It was starting to play with my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Aw.
that was on the floor.
It really seemed to come off like it was almost a child.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
It sounds like a little brownie just like playing around
Yeah.
the house. And
It wasn't
Dylan?
doing anything.
What is a
If-
brownie other than an edible, delicious treat?
no, it's like
It
not a
wasn't-
fairy, but it's like a different type of like fey
Yeah.
creature that
It-
just
Oh,
like
okay.
hangs out in your house. It can also like help you around the house, but
It
yeah, it's
wasn't
just, like
doing
Anything nefarious. It was just playing, really. It was just having fun.
But of course, my 12-year-old self freaked the hell out. And so I screamed at the top of my lungs, "It's in here." And my father
Aw.
came running in.
And he saw nothing out of the sorts. He threw the light on and asked if I was okay, and I was like, "Do you see anything?" He said, "No." So,
Can I ask you a question
You can ask me anything.
before you move on? Did you have like exceptionally weird dreams while you lived there?
Oh yeah. I still do. And
I have exceptionally weird dreams, but that's just because I'm me.
But
Yeah.
if it's like if you're dreaming those things all the time, then it's not exceptional. What I mean
So-
is, like
so
once you moved into the house,
Oh,
did your
okay,
dreams
okay.
like shift.
but just wait. So
my stepmother's nephew, her sister's son, I was very close with him at the time. He claimed that he could see a ghost who he called Johnny Apple.
Oh,
now, as far as I know,
Nobody ever told him anything about our experiences. And so one day he comes over and he tells us, "John wants me to tell you something." And even at this age, I was very dismissive towards him. I just thought it was an imaginary friend until this happened. And he says he wanted me to let you know the reason that you're seeing and smelling the cigarette smoke in the living room and the cigarette smoke in the back den, it's because my stepmother's deceased uncle was in the living room smoking.
who is dead.
Oh.
And
Her grandmother is in the back den, and apparently they still enjoyed cigarette smoke in the afterlife.
Oh, they come and visit her.
they come and visit her.
That's so sweet.
And so, anyway, then he looks to her and he says, "Oh, by the way, are you missing a book?" And I didn't know about this. I find this out later, that while she was at home alone and she was reading this Stephen King book, The Dark Half, I believe, she sat the book down and then got up for whatever reason, turned her back for a few minutes, and washed her hands. And then when she turned back around, the book was just gone.
Dun, dun, dun.
Ooh, yep.
Yeah.
She was the only one there, other than my little sister, who was asleep in her room for her nap. My cousin at the time said, "This is because your uncle thought it was too frightening and he put it in the wall behind the piano." So, of course, 13-year-old me was like, "Get a sledgehammer. We got to bust this freaking
Yeah.
wall down right now. We got to see it's in there."
I'm 36 and I'm like, open the wall.
Yeah. But of course, my father,
He said no. So that was it.
Oh,
we're not going to do that. And I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. Lame.
So that was the experiences of my life in that house. Now, we moved out 2 years later. Yeah, I only lived in this house 2 years. And I was married with children. And my sister came over to our house one night and she was like, "Do you remember the house we used to live in?" And I was like, "How could I forget?" She's like, "Well, look it up on one of the realtor apps." So I do. I look it up. And she's like, "Read the comments." And so I pull it up, and one of the first comments says, "This house is haunted as shit."
oh my God. Oh my God.
Come to find out, that house has gone through renter after renter after renter after renter.
My God.
People do not live in this house more than a year or two. And they all chalk it up to unexplained, weird circumstances, including and not limited to the room that was my bedroom. My sister told me that at one point, one of the reports she came across was that one of the families that lived in the house after we left, they had a bunk bed, and the kid that slept on the top bunk, at one point, one of the reports said that the kid sleeping on the top bunk said that he woke up and there were faces looking at him.
Nice.
Creepy.
And she wasn't kidding. The time that she told me this, it's not there now. When I looked it up at the time that she told me, yeah, that was one of the top comments. This house is super haunted. So that was the most paranormal experience I've ever had.
I want to know what this creature is.
I do too.
I would love for your dad to do like scene sketches, like where they do the suspect sketches, you know, and
Yeah.
like sketch out the face and body of the creature.
I would very be interested in that. Because that is
I also would very be interested in that.
that's a personal experience from my
James.
life that I've carried with me since that happened. And even to the point of in the last few years, my sister, she's very much into the paranormal. She has gone on ghost hunts. In fact, I think at some point in a future episode, we're going to have her on as a guest speaker.
Mhm.
But she, in the last few years ago, she went to the house when it was up for sale, amongst the dozens of times it's been up for sale. And I didn't know this. She went with my former stepmother, her mom, and they posed as potential buyers, but the house was empty. She went back to my bedroom, the room that had been my bedroom. She said that she sat down and almost immediately something pulled her hair.
Oh, I wonder if it would like recognize her.
Yeah, like it knew. So whatever was there seems to still be there.
Hmm.
So and
Haunted
thus-
as shit.
yeah. So thus concludes my story, my personal
Mhm.
Halloween story.
Mm.
Excuse me. My personal Halloween story. Christina,
I do have a story. Is your mic okay? Possibly.
He has a new
Enough.
micro USB cable coming in the mail, so it will be fixed next time.
Let's hope. But yes, Christina, I do know that you have a story that you'd like to share for us on this special Halloween
Okay.
episode.
Yes. And there's actually some new stuff that's happened out of the place that I'm talking about. But yeah, anyway. All right. So, yes. So way back when I was a wee little babe of 22 or 23, I moved into some townhouses with a friend of mine and her little son. They were brand new at the time. So we were like the first ones living in the unit that we rented out. And there was like a first floor and a second floor. So she and her son had the first floor because there were 2 bedrooms upstairs and a bathroom. And then I was on the, did I say second floor or first floor? Crap. Rewind. So she and her son had the second floor and it had 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. And then I was staying on the first floor, which had, the main living space and then a bedroom and bathroom behind the kitchen. So when we first moved in at night, I would hear probably like around 10 or 11. So like not super late, but I'm an early bird, so I go to bed really early. I would hear clanging around in the kitchen. So I thought it was just her like doing whatever she was doing because we'd never lived together before. So, I thought, okay, she just, stays up later than me. I'm an old lady at heart. So I go to bed at like 9:30. So I would hear that like every night, just clanging around in the kitchen around, 10 or 11. And then one night I had this dream. I don't know what it was. It was like a dream, but I was like semi-conscious. So I was like laying on my side and I had this like chest at the end of my bed and I was laying on my side and I woke up or like semi woke up because again it was like a in between state was what it felt like to like the sounds of like body weight on that chest. So I sat on it a lot, so I kind of knew what it sounded like. I would like crawl on it when I got in my bed. And so I woke up to that sound in the middle of the night, like somebody's body weight on that chest. And then behind me, it felt like somebody was like crawling into the bed. You know how you can feel like when someone crawls into a bed, you can feel like the shift in pressure on the mattress, right? So like my body kind of tilted. But again, it's like, I don't know what kind of state I was in because I couldn't really move and I wasn't like able to look at whatever it was, whoever it was. And then it's like, I felt like a hand on my shoulder, like squeeze my shoulder. And then in my ear whisper, Christina. And then that's what like,
Yep.
that's what made me like jump and jolt. And there was like nothing there. And after that night, I actually had a dream of this lady like wearing like all black, of course, and like with long dark hair, like crawling into my bed and doing like exactly kind of that situation. But in the dreams, I could actually see a person, and it was like this weird lady, like really pale skin with like long dark hair, kind of like The Grudge or something, like somebody crawling into your bed. And she was wearing this like long black dress. Anyway, so those were like weird dreams I would have living there after that experience. Well, not long after that, so we're still like moving in, and my friend that I was living with had ordered this crazy large bed that was like comically large for her room. Sorry if you're listening to this, but it was comically large for like a townhouse. So she had like 2 of her friends come and help her put it together. So like I was helping her, and then she worked for the police department, so she had 2 cop friends, male cop friends, come and help too. So all 4 of us, her son was not there, all four of us were working on this bed, putting it together upstairs. And I stop because I hear all this clanging around in the kitchen. Like, usually when I'm already in bed, I hear this clanging around, and I always think it's my friend. But this time I'm upstairs and I'm hearing it, and we're all upstairs. And so I thought, okay, maybe I'm totally insane. And I'm stopping and listening. And then everybody stops and starts listening. And I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not making up these noises. So me and my friend kind of like freak out, and we go hide in like her bathroom that's upstairs. And the two cop guys go downstairs to check it out to see like what the noise is, and there's nobody downstairs, nothing amiss, like no cabinets or pots and pans disorderly or anything like that. And by the time they went down there, the noise had stopped. So that was kind of odd, freaked us out a little bit. So anyway, I continue like having these weird dreams about this lady. Me and my friend start farting.
As you do.
As you do,
So
as people.
that's what women do when we're not around.
We start farting around, we start fighting a lot is what I meant to say, but farts happen. So we start fighting a lot, and it's kind of inexplicably, like to this day, we don't really know why we were so angry at each other.
Probably over the farts.
The stench of the farts I was releasing. Anyway, so fast forward a little bit, just like a month or so, my sister is having her first baby, and my laptop had to be like hooked up at the time. There was like no Wi-Fi, so it had to be like physically hooked up to like a LAN cable or an Ethernet cable, whatever it's called. So that was upstairs where my roommate's bedroom was. And so I go up there, it's like 7:00 in the morning. I'm booting up my laptop to find directions to the hospital where my sister is having the baby, or had the baby, so I can go visit. And I'm waiting for my computer to come up. It's really slow. And I like turn around in my little desk chair, like swivel around, and my roommate's door is open, and her friend had stayed the night, and she was sitting up but she had like her knees curled up to her chest. So like a sitting upright fetal position.
As you do.
Yeah. And my friend was sound asleep next to her. And so I was like, are you okay? What are you doing? It's like 7, and she says, well, I never went to sleep because I heard somebody walking up and down the stairs all night. And then she said, I saw someone, but it was dark. And so it was like just a silhouette in the doorway, like a black silhouette, like pitch black silhouette in the doorway. And it just like floated over to the side of the bed, and I felt like it was staring at me, but I couldn't see a face. It was just like a black figure, totally black figure. And it stayed there and stayed in the room, would like shift around the room. So like would be next to her in the bed, then shift to the end of the bed, maybe go back to the doorway or whatever. But it like haunted her all night. And she's like, it didn't go away until you like turned on the lights and came up here. And I was like, okay, that's real spooky. I don't know what's going on in this place. Okay, so not long after that, me and my roommate have a falling out, and I'm moving out. I'm like, I was young, and so I didn't even try to work it out with her. So sorry about that, roommate. You know who you are. But I moved out and didn't really hear much else about that place until another friend and her husband moved into those townhouses, but a separate building. And her and like her husband would like have these crazy fights that they never used to have. And like he was kind of acting out of character, like aggressive and angry. And they wound up moving out, and he, went back to normal, like calmed down, and he's been fine ever since. Well, just recently, I saw, I think it was like a couple days ago, I saw a news article about a death in that townhouse complex. And so while we were talking, I just looked it up because I didn't know if it was like a natural death or, something else. Apparently, it was a violent death, like someone shot another person in those townhouses. I don't know the details. I don't know if it's paranormal connected, but I do know that I was acting really angry. My roommate was acting really angry, and my friend's husband was acting really like wild and angry. So I don't know. It's just kind of like a weird circumstance, but
I mean, that's quite a coincidence. Just saying.
mhm. So anyway, that's the end of that story. I
Pretty
don't know
creepy
who,
as hell.
yeah, I don't know who the lady in my dreams and touching me in the night, but I think she was banging around pots and pans too to freak us out.
That's a whole lot of dope.
Oh, yeah.
hmm
No, thank you.
And like I said, those were new townhouses, so I don't know, like maybe there's something weird on land or something. And I do think it's like creepy that there was a murder in those townhouses very recently when I was like thinking about the story that I was going to tell here. Not that they're actually connected, but I feel like it's just like odd.
There is a belief that a crime of passion can leave a permanent mark on the area. It doesn't even necessarily need to be the particular apartment if it is a string of buildings that are all connected. So maybe.
But and I'm not going to say the area where we come from because I don't want to insult a bunch of people, but you guys know where we come from, and that area has just a weird feeling.
It does.
It do.
It do. That baby do. All right.
No. Now, James, it's your turn.
Are you ready for some
Oh, I'm ready.
true tales of
Yes.
suspense and terror?
Yes.
I can't wait.
Lay
Okay.
on us.
So when I was a wee little youngling growing up in Arkansas, the house I grew up in supposedly had a number of supernatural, paranormal, whatever, who's its things going on occasion. But it culminated in the latter days at a point where my grandmother, who was living with us, she kept having these incidents more than once, more than twice, in growing frequency, if you will, where she would wake up in the middle of the night, paralyzed, and she would look down her bed, unable to move, and she would describe in great detail, half of which I don't remember, but that aside, she would look down the bed and see what one would best describe as, let's say, a very sickly looking individual. And by sickly, I mean, think like all the way to the like plague victim level of sickliness. We're
Yeah.
talking like leper level stuff, right?
Mhm.
Like skin is all just, yeah, right? So that level of sickliness looking person just crawling up the bed toward her via the
Oh.
hands. Like there's not even any leg locomotion going on here. This is just
Oh my gosh.
pulling oneself up by the hands toward her in the middle of the night. This happened more than once. So this not being the first of crazy stories around my house is like, all right, that's enough. So her bedroom had a little like day bed across the room from her. So it's like, I'm gonna go in there. I'm gonna sleep in that day bed and see if I can catch this occurrence in the middle of the night because I want to see what the hell's going on. So I did this. So the first night, conked my young little self out on that day bed, sleep through the night, and in the middle of the night, I slept soundly. I woke up the next morning just completely rested, and nothing happened. But then
Nothing?
the next night, I went to sleep in that daybed, ready, waiting to wake up any moment and jump into action. And it was nothing really good night of sleep. I was well rested, woke up the next morning, everything was fine. And never happened again.
Nothing ever occurred.
Even your grandmother never saw that thing again?
Nope, that was it.
You scared it off.
Behold the power of James, who pushes back the powers of darkness.
Now, thankfully, I do have a second story, and this one's actually recent.
Ooh, okay.
Okay.
Do
So,
tell.
so I'll need to give you a little bit of preamble as context here. So, north of where I live in the DFW area of Texas, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, for those not in the know of the local language, there is a little town by the name of Denton, and it has a bridge, an old bridge, infamously known as the Goatman's Bridge.
Ooh.
What is the Goatman's Bridge, you might ask?
Do tell us.
You asking? Well, according to Atlas Obscura, which I'm about to plagiarize, the bridge got its nickname from a popular local ghost story. The legend concerns a successful African-American goat farmer who, in 1938, is said to have been murdered on the bridge at the hands
damn.
of local members of the Ku Klux Klan, the KKK. It's said that the Klansmen lynched the goat farmer, hanging him with a noose over the side of the bridge. But when they went down below to confirm the goat farmer was dead, his body had disappeared.
Oh shit.
That's one version. Because you always have to have a version with racism. Like no American story is complete without a little dose of racism. The alternate version of the story is that instead of a goat farmer, the story that circulated is that so the site says the bridge is actually haunted by the Goatman's wife. And then yet another story blames the work of Satanists instead of KKK, which potato. But most versions of the tale tend to include a warning that knocking 3 times on the trusses of the bridge runs the risk of bringing out the goat man. So over the decades, there have been numerous alleged sightings of a ghost-like apparition with a goat head haunting the area. Some locals have claimed to see glowing eyes staring at them on the bridge, while others have claimed to hear splashing in the creek directly below, followed by unsettling laughter. As early as 2017, BuzzFeed Unsolved Supernatural investigated some of these claims. And if you happen to frequent the Supernatural side of YouTube, you've probably seen the video on it. Anywho, my brother and niece come down to visit on her birthday. And they're both eager beaver to go, hey, James, let's go at 2 a.m. in the morning to the Goatman's Bridge. So like, okay, sure. So off we go, driving for about half an hour up north into Denton to the Goatman's Bridge. And we park off on the side of the road because this is a bridge no longer in service. And we go off to the woods and we find the bridge. And here, like on this dark bridge in the middle of the night, we walk across the bridge, stop dead in the center, and knock on the trestles 3 times. Look around. I look down and I find at my feet a message that says, fuck Elon Musk. In bold graffiti, because that was like the biggest thing on the entire bridge. Like somebody had just like written that out in graffiti. And that was like in such large letters, it was the most prominent thing of everything on the bridge.
Wow.
And that was it.
Of course it was.
Wait. So wait,
But so I guess if Elon Musk ever goes to middle of nowhere Denton to that bridge, he'll know there's some locals that have a bone to pick.
he doesn't have friends there.
Well, I have folks that got a bone to pick with Mr. Musk. I'm just saying. Maybe the boatman, or the goat man have a bone to pick with Mr. Musk. Maybe it was a message from beyond. I don't know. You know, he pisses a lot of people off.
So
Well-
I'm going to clarify for our listeners. We don't think people that are in the Satanic Church are the same as KKK members.
Yes,
I
we
just want to
don't.
clarify that.
That's true, because ironically, one of those is not racist.
Yeah, I was like, definitely know some Satanists that are not.
Well, I was thinking in the context of like the Satanic Panic caricature,
I know.
the cartoonish villain version. If you
I
will.
totally understood what you were referencing, but I was like, let's make sure that we clarify.
Right. Yes. So yes. The Satanic Church is actually like quite a few notches above the KKK.
Yeah. Anyway, but I do want to know, what were the satanic practices that brought about the goat man part of that story? Do we know?
That's a great question. I'm sure, like whatever your '80s Satanic Panic bingo card is, just check off those boxes. But I don't know. I don't know specifically.
Okay. So, moral of the story: fuck Elon Musk.
Yeah. Yeah. Screw you and your electric cars.
I would like to thank everybody for joining us for our special Halloween episode. If you liked this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. And then, of course, join us for our next episode, which will be November the 8th. And if you ever have a personal experience that you'd like to share with us, please feel free to email us at littlepodcasthorrors@gmail.com.
Hail Ashtar.
Fuck Elon Musk.
Yeah, screw Elon Musk, you bastard. In that sense, we want to wish everybody a happy and safe Halloween, and we're verily
Nay, verily.
we are extremely happy.
We're verily happy to have you. Hail Ashtar.
Happy Halloween.